everyone, it's Julian. Today I'm back with another video talking to you about how to make modern breakbeat rave music like Prospa. As usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so here's the project file. The first thing here is the kick. Which the main thing to notice with the kick is two things. One, the style of sound that it is. It's just this very fast, it doesn't have a lot of like ringing out sounds here. It's not got like a big boom or like a long tail or anything. It's just a really fast, punchy, hard-hitting sample with a strong transient, as you can see. And the other thing here is the pattern that the kick is playing. If you listen, the kick is really just meant to sort of like add more on top of the breakbeat. Like this breakbeat is sort of the main drum pattern. And then you can hear when we bring in the kick that all that's doing is it's just adding in the low end for those notes where the kick is already hitting in the breakbeat. So that's how you want to think about this. Is not necessarily like its own thing, but kind of as part of the breakbeat, and it's like, how can this kick sample add to the breakbeat, rather than just sort of like get in the way of it. And yeah, then we just have some drum buss on that. Then we have the bass. So there's the bass pattern. You can see it's pretty simple. It's mostly just based around two chords. We just go B, and then down to G. And then also, technically, you can consider that A as part of the chord progression. So it's a very simple chord progression. And then we just have these little extra notes like that kind of stuff, just to add a little bit more flavor to the pattern and make it a little bit more exciting. And also kind of more rhythmic, too, because if it just goes the whole way through, it's got a lot less rhythm to it than if it goes like kind of just having it do these little things can add a lot to the bass line. Now, for the sound, it's made with two layers. So we have this re-space and then a sub-bass. So the re-space is made using wavetable. It's actually just one saw wave here, and then I just have it going through the unison, which you can see is set pretty high, and that's all it is for inside a wavetable here. But then after that, we have a few things. So the first thing is this auto filter. This is actually a notch filter. So this is really popular with re-spaces. I've heard this a ton actually in Prospa's tracks. It gives you that really classic kind of like neuro re sort of sound, and all it's doing is just a filter with a bit of an LFO on it. Here's without the filter. And then you can hear what it's doing when I turn it on. And yeah, then we just have a bit of chorus. Just spreading the sound out a bit, making it a bit bigger. Then we have some overdrive, which is giving this like that crunch and making it like a really big distorted bass. Then finally we just have a high pass filter. And then for the sub bass, this one's made using operator, and it's a lot more simple. All this is it's just a sine wave with a little bit of FM from a second sine wave here, just to give it a bit more harmonic content, to kind of glue it to the re-space a little bit. And then we just have some drum buss, and that's just fattening this up even more and making that sub really, really big. And then I have the kick, or the group of the two basses together here, which has, you can see, just a bit of drum buss, so that's just kind of gluing these together, and I've also got a bit of compression on there, so it's really helping to like even them out and just make it feel like one really big fat bass. Then we have this EQ8 here, which is cutting a bit of room out for the kick at 100 Hertz. And then finally I just have a compressor which sidechains this to the kick. And then the kick and the bass together are just going through a little bit of saturation. This is just a nice and kind of easy way and subtle way to sort of glue these together. You can take two very different sounds, like the kick and the bass are very different sounds, of course, but by putting them through saturation and like kind of, gluing them together based on what they have in common, which is low frequencies, you can hear they can sound really tight and just make the overall low end very clean and full sounding. And yeah, then we have this pad. happening here is we have this chord playing. So what it is it's actually a B minor 9 chord without the minor 7th. So what I mean by this is a B minor chord. And then we have that C sharp up top, which is the 9th. And then typically if this was going to be like a textbook, minor 9 chord, you would have this voice in there. But we don't. To make it a bit darker, because that voice tends to add a bit more of like a light sort of sound. And then what's happening is that just drones throughout this whole time. And then we have this going, same as actually what the bass was doing, where it was going B down to G. It's just playing B, and then the 5th of B, and then G, and the 5th of G. So pretty simple pad there, just kind of following the chords. For the sound, this is also made with wavetables. So this one is actually a saw wave and I believe a square wave. Yeah, so we have a saw wave and a square wave. They're an octave apart, as you can see. And then what I have here is on the saw wave, I actually have the synth. You can see that movement happening. I have LFO1 just on the synth. It's really slow, but it just gives the sound some movement. It's not just sitting in the same place the whole time. And then I just have this going, I've got the unison here, you can see it's on the classic setting, and it's set like that. And yeah, then we just have a bit of chorus. You can see that feedback's up pretty high, so it adds to the kind of like metallic sound. Then we have some reverb to give it some space, a bit of drum bus, because even though this is more of like a pad, and it is a bit more of an atmospheric sound, you still want it to be as big and as full as possible. So that's what that's doing. Then we just have a compressor to sidechain this to the kick, and a high pass filter, and that's it for the pad. And then we have this arpeggio. So yeah, here's the MIDI for this. It seems complicated, but it's really just notes that are in the same B minor scale. So you can see like we have B, F sharp, which is the 5th of B, another B, D, which is the minor 3rd, A, which is the minor 7th, another B, and then that D, C sharp. Again, these are all just like the root note, the minor 3rd, the 5th, the 9th, all those kinds of voices. And then it's just how you play around with it, like how we have it going from that. Then once it gets here, it goes down to G, because that's where the chords of everything else are going. And yeah, it's just kind of like following the pattern, but creating something that's catchy and exciting and energetic on its own. For the sound on this one, this is made with analogs. So what this is it's 2 saw waves, the first one being an octave up, going into a low pass filter which has an envelope on it. So that's how you kind of hear that pluck happening if I turn the filter off. And then we just have the amp envelope set like that. And then I just have a bit of vibrato and a bit of unison. And the vibrato is actually really important with this one. If I turn it off, you can hear having that kind of like craziness that the vibrato is creating actually does a lot for the sound in terms of making it unique. Then we just have a bit of echo. You can see that's on the ping pong setting. Then I have my ultimate stereo widening rack, which I have a video explaining this. I will link that at the top of the description, but I'm using that to just spread this out and make it sit a little bit different in the mix so that it's not fighting for the same space with everything else. Then we have some drum bus, which is fattening the sound up, a compressor to sidechain into the kick, and then finally just a high pass filter, and that is it for the arpeggio. Then we have the breakbeat. So I was trying to really get that same texture like you hear in their tracks. And really what it comes down to is the breakbeat that you're starting with. So what I'm doing here is we're layering a few different breaks together. I have this one. And then this one. And you can hear that first one is really the main one. This already has that texture to it where it's very, it's not like super long hits, like it's very tight. You can hear each individual hit. It has a lot of punch to it. It's very fat already as well. And this is what you want to look for, you know? It's like, if you try to take a breakbeat and sit there and spend 3 days putting like a million different effects on it and try to get it to sound in whatever type of way, you're not really going to get it. But if you find a sound like this that just right off the bat has that texture and is doing like mostly what you want, then all you have to do is chop it and make your own pattern like I've done here and just high pass it a little bit. And there you go, you're already going to have a nice breakbeat. So I have that. And then we're layering this one on top of it, which obviously you can hear this one's a lot more on the high end. It also has that like happening, so we're getting some 16th notes. And you can hear like when you put these together, they complement each other. It's not like we have two clashing breakbeats. We have two that are doing completely different things that then when you put them together, you get the best of both worlds. And then the last thing is we just have this little snare here. So I'll play you the breakbeats without it, and then with it. So that, again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying with the kick. This is just in there to add a little bit more to the breakbeat and kind of fill it out and just make the snares really punch through. And then on the group of all that, we just have some drum bus. So here's without it. And with it, it's just a little bit of extra fattening and kind of gluing these together to make one really full sounding breakbeat. Then we have our snare, which again is just adding up on top of what the breakbeat's doing. And this is like that really like punchy, kind of almost a bit deeper and lower snare like you hear in a lot of these tracks. This is the secret, is you have your whole breakbeat going, it's got its own snare, and then you just add in like a and it just makes the snare super punchy in the breakbeat. So that's just going through a bit of drum bus, and then this EQ8 cutting on some low end. Then we have this hi-hat. And you can see this is actually completely dry. This just plays 16th notes. If I turn this off and play you the whole track, now listen to what it sounds like when I turn it on. Having that constant like from this hi-hat adds a lot of energy. And the other thing is that a lot of this music is meant to reference like kind of older 90s sort of like breakbeat, like hardcore and all that kind of stuff from the really early days of jungle and when people were using breakbeats. And so a lot of times in those tracks they were doing this, like they would have a breakbeat loop and then they'd have a 909 or an 808 and just have the hi-hats from that constantly going. And so that's kind of what this is meant to recreate. It's just that constant like it adds a lot of energy to the track because it's in the high end and it's very frequent. And then the last thing down here are the vocals, which sound like this.
You know you're gonna be mine.
So yeah, these are just these two little sort of like soulful 90s style female vocals. You know, very like classic house type of vibes. That's definitely what you want to go for here. And then the key is just getting some that are going to fit nicely with your track and, you know, be in tune and all that. And you can see, like, you know, it comes together pretty simply. It's not a whole lot of processing on the individual vocals either. You can see it's just some echo and a bit of reverb on each of them. It's actually the same processing because, yeah, you really don't need, like, a whole lot of stuff. You just need the reverb and echo to give it a lot of space. You know, something to fatten it up, like I use drum bus here, or you can use saturation, or like maybe one of the Waves vocal plugins, or that kind of thing. And then just a high pass filter, and then it's like, you know, the vocals are going to do it for themselves. If you have really good vocal samples. That's the idea. It's about letting the vocal sample that's already really good shine, rather than like adding a bunch of stuff to try to make it really good. And yeah. So that is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available at the top of the description on my Bandcamp and on my Patreon as well. So if you're a patron, check there. Yeah, this really supports me, guys. When you guys pick up these samples, you get great samples to work with, great templates to work from, and it just supports me and helps keep me going so I can keep bringing you guys new videos every single day, and we can all keep learning together. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.